Let me trick you a little with this fun question. Imagine that you were advising the PMO of India, and you had to design policies to address the biggest climate risks that we face as a country. What would you advise the PM to do?
It's a good question. Besides some of these concepts in mind, I would say that I think coordination of there are obviously, right, different bureaus, ministries, et cetera, that are responsible for different aspects of policy within India. And so I think kind of what I would a little bit advise, I guess, is that with these broader goals in mind, kind of coordinated policy making between these different bureaus becomes important, or coordinated targets. Because if you set a solar target in one place and a demand target in another place and an industrial target in another place, then they don't actually align with each other, there isn't actually a way to reconcile them, then I think that really hurts the kind of implementation of strategies, of policies to actually actualize those things. So I think I would say kind of, and again, I'm coming from the US, I'm not as familiar with Indian policy and the Indian policy context, but I would say that because these actions really bring together many different parts of the economy and sectors, that sort of coordinated target setting is extremely important.
And just to put you on the spot, if you were advising Donald Trump on designing the policy for, say, the US, what would your opinion be there?
So I think in that context, what I would kind of say is, especially in the context of the power grid, I think a lot of the changes that have been proposed to transition the power grid kind of are, in the US context, I think kind of the concept of making power more affordable, more reliable, more robust, and more clean. You're often kind of leveraging the same mix of technologies to do that these aren't necessarily in competition with each other anymore. And so that kind of, it's really important to be truly kind of driven by kind of the goals and sort of allow technologies that are going to compete well on the grid to compete, rather than right now there's been a little bit of a focus on okay, we're going to keep coal online, we're going to say no to wind. And that actually doesn't make sense from the perspective of economics, that doesn't make sense from the perspective of resilience, that doesn't make sense from the perspective of load growth. It's sort of a little bit like picking and choosing. And so I think, I think at this point we need to be driven by the goals. And I think in that sense, you'll see a lot of alignment between different goals, like affordability and clean grids are actually achieved by the same technologies.
Here I would love to ask you, I think this would be a good segue into asking you about nuclear power, because, Microsoft just struck that $16 billion deal about the 3 Mile Island, where, after 20 years, there's a US nuclear power plant which will get reactivated. China is making similar investments. In fact, they already have, I think, 2 nuclear power plants there. India is still very, very early days thinking about it, right? So how does one think about nuclear power, and what benefits do you see in the AI space overall, and what risks?
Yeah, so I think that from my perspective, in many places, nuclear power is a really compelling option to be part of a clean energy portfolio. And kind of the 2 big benefits are, one, it's big. You can kind of build one plant and actually kind of provide a lot of load. And then the other one is that it's what we would call firm power. So basically you can kind of control to a large extent how much is being produced because you're putting fuel in, rather than kind of thinking about kind of, how much will this produce based on things like the weather. And so I think this kind of clean, firm power is really actually useful and important in the context of climate strategies. And there are understandably various things people are worried about in terms of kind of storage of the nuclear waste or kind of proliferation. And I think there's been a lot of debate and scholarship on these things and in terms of how we deal with them. But I think kind of from the kind of clean energy lens, I think these are important technologies.